Welcome to the Business Legends Podcast, where we interview business leaders and entrepreneurs so that you can learn from their successes, pump up your own inspiration, and meet the people that make change happen. I'm the host of the show, Reese Arlen, along with my co-host, to my right, the one, the only, missed last week, Christian Webb. How you doing?
Doing good. Today's about one of my favorite topics, technology.
Indeed it is. We're very excited for our guests today. Today we have Mr. Andrew Ashur and Scott Wiley. I can't believe I didn't mess any of that up. From the coolest drone company that I have ever known, Lucid Drone Technologies. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
I didn't screw up anything. I'm like nervous that I didn't mess up any of that.
That's awesome.
So that's incredible. For those of you that don't know with Business Legends, I typically end up saying at least something wrong, so we have to give it a second take or third. So anyway, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning on this glorious the weather. Screw the groundhog. That's what I have to say. The groundhog came out and he said we're gonna have 6 more weeks of winter,
And it was 60 degrees.
And it's 60 degrees, and I'm in a sweater, and you're in a polo, and I'm sweating, and you're not, and it's upsetting me. So, gentlemen, let's get right into it. Lucid. So, talk about the name first off. So, how did you come up with that? What's the story here?
So when we first started with the idea of drones that could clean buildings, a lot of people said, wow, it's such a great idea, or I've had it in the past, but I never actually did anything with it. And we kept getting stuck on this concept of people being like, yes, it's great. Clearly, it's going to be a good idea. It's so obvious. So we just looked in the thesaurus for the word clarity.
Thesaurus.
And
Nice.
we were like, okay, what's a good word that kind of centers on this topic of clarity? And we found Lucid, and we knew a lot of great businesses are typically easy to spell. They're a little bit abstract, giving them a lot of wiggle room to grow and pivot over the years. So Lucid was a good starting place, and we've kept it ever since.
That's incredible. I wish that we would have thought the same way. We have Business Marketing Solutions Group, and nobody's ever spelled that right on the first try.
It's about to be shortened to BMSG.
Yeah, we're gonna pay a lot of money to shorten it to something, but regardless,
It will be.
So, how long ago did you start with Lucid?
So the idea was the fall of 2017.
Okay.
I was a junior in
That's the
college
same
at
as
the
us.
time.
Yeah, that's incredible. And were you always interested in drones and stuff, or how did that go?
I had no
Hobbyist?
background in drones,
Okay.
no background in cleaning. I was actually majoring in economics and Spanish. And I think those who know me, like Scott, would say I don't have just one screw loose. I have a couple screws loose.
Nice.
So
nice.
In my starry-eyed reality, I was like, I could probably teach myself to build drones and figure this out. So it was a humbling journey to do it, but I'm glad I went on it.
Yeah, no kidding. And I mean, did you? Here's a strange question, but did you feel like pulled towards it, like you immediately, as soon as you started messing with it, like you're like, I love this.
I almost couldn't sleep. I got so excited.
Wow.
And I've always been very passionate and had probably too many hobbies.
Okay.
At the time, I was playing a Division I sport, doing 2 majors, working 3 part-time jobs, and then I decided I'm going to found this startup company.
Wow.
And I quickly found myself gravitating toward wanting to spend every free minute working on the startup. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I think I know what I want to do when I graduate.
Sure, that's spectacular. All right, now Scott, you're not off the hook. So when did Scott come in, and how did you meet this fine, upstanding gentleman?
So I'd like to go on the record first and say we actually met in college.
Okay.
And now I'll let Scott tell the actual story.
Yeah, so we met 2018.
Okay,
So
a year after.
Yeah, a year after. I was employed with a different company, and I ran into a tennis friend of mine who said, "Hey, I got I'm investing with these great young minds, and they're really smart, and they got a great product. They're not quite to the point where they really have launched this full time, but I think you might have some interest in kind of mentoring." So we spent better part of a year, probably, kind of just weekends or evenings, or we'd set up little meetings and kind of help them kind of establish a little bit more on the sales and marketing side and try to walk them through that, and then. As we kind of grew, I decided to start my own consulting business, which I did in 2020.
Okay.
Right, and then they were my first customer, so to speak.
Gotcha.
And the premise was, how can we move things relatively quickly with part of my time? And I had 5 or 6 other people interested in kind of coming on board. And after our second meeting, we met and we started working through just some basic business principles. Andrew sort of grabbed me in the parking lot and said, "Hey, we need more from you." And I kind of thought, well, I can give you 15 hours a week instead of 10. And he's like, yeah, that's not really what I was talking about. Like, I'd like you to come work with us full time. And it was interesting. The advisor that I met, he said, these guys are going to do something really big. They just need some adult supervision.
Okay,
So,
makes sense.
So
Makes sense.
my first job description I kind of go back to was sort of adult supervision.
Adult supervision,
And then
yeah.
it kind of has grown from there. And, Andrew asked me kind of in the early phase, just, I need someone to sort of question everything. Like, just help us learn. Because it's a situation with young founders where they don't know what they don't know.
Sure.
Right? So we've evolved significantly from there. And we've really kind of hit the ground running. And I think Andrew's leaving out a few, I think, key variables in the story.
Sure.
He did all that he talked about in 3 years.
Wow.
At Davidson, double major, D1 baseball, 3 jobs, and started a company.
Wow.
Okay, so just the scope of kind of
Yeah.
the type of personality. And one of the things that are really interesting, we have a lot of commonalities, besides being in college together.
Right.
My parents are both teachers.
Yeah.
Andrew's parents are both teachers. We both have a liberal arts background, which I think is, in my opinion, critical for startups.
Yeah.
Because you can go a mile wide and a foot deep.
Sure.
Versus, hey, I'm an engineer. Well, an engineer is going to be fantastic on the product side, but they might not understand some of the other aspects. So I think there's a couple of those key caveats. And then Andrew's phenomenal at with his network, and then also kind of filling gaps where he doesn't feel he has strengths.
Yeah.
So he's really, really good at that.
That's the point, and I mean, we have our own business story to tell, of course, but I think you guys are episode 60 or 59 or 58 or something like that, and whenever we meet two folks that have a business partnership of something, we see the same recurring themes, and one of those themes is you typically have, it's almost like a comedy set, right? You have like a
guy with a couple screws loose.
Yeah, you have a guy with a couple screws loose, and you have a guy that's nailing them to the ground or screwing them in, type of thing, And it seems like you guys have kind of developed that partnership. Can you guys? It's okay if you can't, but can you think of any specific time where you guys challenged one another, or there was a specific interaction where you wanted to go one way and you wanted to go the other, or something like that?
So I think one specific challenge I can talk about is when Scott first joined the team, the business was in a state of transitioning across all departments.
Sure.
And I think this is something every entrepreneur struggles with at some point in their business growth, is transitioning from doing to delegating and managing.
Sure.
And at one point in time, I was the lone full-time employee at Lucid. I was the engineer. I was the sales guy. I was a finance team. I was in every department. And over time, we brought on brilliant people. I had to start delegating away. And it was Scott who was able to help pull me out of that trench of, hey, you can actually be very effective by being more of a lever in managing and delegating rather than feeling like you need to do everything. So I think without that third-party perspective sometimes, you see entrepreneurs for their whole career, they get stuck at a certain business level because they don't realize the best way to build a great company is to build great people. So you need to find those great people and then empower them to do what they do best, and that's usually the best thing you can do as a leader for your company.
Yeah, good on you to learn that early.
Yeah, we've learned. We've what's the expression? Taken our medicine on that exact same.
It's a couple years ago though, so we've been running that thing pretty.
Yeah, and I would add, one of the first things we discussed with the kind of the core team was a number of things, and I flat out said to them, I said, when was the last time you guys got in sort of a knockdown, drag out argument where you guys were really kind of mad at each other? And they all smiled and said, never. And I said, that's a problem.
Yeah. When was our last one, by the way? Yesterday. And so we, so the nice thing is we've gotten tremendous help from the local Charlotte community. Sure.
But it's not just around product and that sort of thing, right? So we met with a group it's a family-owned company. 3 brothers have 3 different divisions of the company, right?
Right.
And I was like, well, okay, I want to have I had a lot of questions, right? And so they walked us through how they do like their weekly, monthly, quarterly meetings.
Yeah.
And they literally say, when you walk in this door, right, we're gonna get after it, and it might get ugly.
Yeah.
But as soon as you walk out, right. So they set that tone really early. I think Andrew and I have, I would call it sort of some advantages that are also disadvantages. We're incredibly close outside of work. We're very good friends, probably like you two.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like it's my job to make sure that he understands that won't change regardless of the decision he makes about the business.
Sure.
Because I think I've been around the block a few times. Like I can't hold a candle to the rest of our employees in terms of knowledge, experience, or expertise and that sort of thing, right? But
Sure.
I bring a little bit of experience, and I think that's my value. But I also always want him to understand because a young entrepreneur, it's really hard to look at someone with a lot of experience and go, I don't like what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right. So we've had some recent episodes where he's like, let's go for a walk.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And then I think that's where I got to step back and go, okay, what's best for the company? And if Andrew literally, and he knows this, like I told him, if he walks in and says, you're no longer needed here anymore, he knows I would gracefully bow up and we'd still be friends.
Yeah.
Right. Like so we've really had a lot of conversation about that.
Yeah.
But I think as the person that's been around the block, it's my role to empower him to make those decisions, regardless of how he feels I will feel or other senior people will feel.
Yeah, it's a tough lesson to learn.
Yeah.
I mean, we often talk about it. We've been best friends for like a decade or 12 years,
you're
something
fired.
like that. Yeah, good luck with that one, buddy. So, the thought of that is hilarious. But no, but you're right. I actually did. I took a stand-up comedy class last year just for fun.
Yeah.
And one of the jokes I had is that it's very interesting being in business with your best friend because you can be at each other's throats and be like, you son of a, I hate you. Your idea is so stupid. And then 5 o'clock rolls around. It's like, hey man, we're doing a pickleball league tonight, right? And just kind of go on. But it's an interesting.
I want to slide back to where you talked about like opening this company. You had no technology, you had no drone background, and you had no cleaning background. I want to ask, did you have any like weird moment where you were like, people are saying you can't do this because you have no experience in it, but you were like, everybody who starts this and does well, they didn't have experience either. Like, who wakes up in the morning and goes, I know a lot about drones. I'm going to go fly them around the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Did you ever have that moment? And what was it like, if you did?
When I look back at that time, the majority of people thought I was insane. And in their defense, that was probably the popular opinion. And it did make sense. I was fortunate that the people closest to me believed in me. So my now wife, my parents, my siblings, like the people who knew me to my core are like, well, it's Andrew. He's just going to figure it out. I call it my lone superpower in this world is I read very quickly and am fortunate to remember what I read. So I'm like, well, I've learned a lot of other hard things. I've solved a lot of other difficult challenges. This is just the next thing on the roadmap I need to go solve for. So I turned down a lot of exciting opportunities from an outside perspective to go pursue a whimsical, no funding at the beginning drone company. And I would do it every time again because what I've learned is so invaluable, and the network I built, I couldn't have done it any other way. I remember thinking to myself about a year in, I still had friends who were finishing their senior years of college. I've now got a year of working experience building a company. I found myself sitting across from the CEO of a major company that had just invested in our company. And I'm like, if I had applied for an internship at this company, I probably wouldn't have gotten an interview.
Wow.
And now the CEO is writing a check to invest in the company I started. So just that paradigm shift in as little as 12 months was very eye-opening of what's possible when you're willing to take challenges head on. And I've been fortunate to meet a lot of impressive people over the years. And when you ask them about their stories, one of the commonalities that always stands out is they don't sit there and tell you about their successes, at least the humble ones, the ones I appreciate the most. They sit there and tell you about those dark, lonely moments when things were really hard and they had to dig deep and figure it out. And that's what always stands out is the greatest growth happens in those moments of challenge. And I joke that entrepreneurs are a little bit wacky. Like the typical norms of humanity don't apply to them. If we were, say, opening the door to a dark room, most people would be like, oh, it's dark in there. There could be a scary monster. Let me close it and walk back out. Us startup folks, we open a dark room door and we're like, what could be in here?
Right.
I might trip over something on the ground trying to find the light switch, but there could be opportunity hiding in the corner. I need to find it. So it's just a completely different mindset, but it makes people very uncomfortable when you kind of step outside what they consider normal and are willing to take on those big challenges.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the reason I brought that up is because a lot of our listeners are young entrepreneurs or people wanting to be entrepreneurs. And I feel like that's a very common situation. I mean, even for our company when we first started, I remember people going, you don't know how to do marketing? And they're right. I had no clue. my first job, didn't even know how to do the social media posts 7 years ago. And I got lucky with a contract with Anytime Fitness. And they were like, hey, if you do a good job for us, we'll push you out to other people. I learned, I attacked, I executed, and then I overperformed. He was super excited, got us in front of 42 anytime fitnesses. Wow. Now, it could have went the other way. I could have been broke. But I gave up a really good job to do that. And I think that needs to happen more often, especially the people who haven't made the jump yet. Like, they need to quit thinking, I need to keep studying, keep studying, keep studying. That's not the point.
Yeah, so I would tell you that I think you're seeing a lot more entrepreneurial spirit and people having great ideas. And I think the message from my perspective is there's a lot of people out there that were just like you are today that are willing to help and are willing to guide you somewhat. And it's just asking, right? Because what I see, and I do a fair amount of mentoring today, a lot of people have great ideas. And it's like, awesome, what's step one? I don't ask them for like a business plan or anything. It's just, can you, I've always looked at it as in entrepreneurship, it's a race to the starting line. It's not a race to the finish line, right? Because most people go, well, I got to do that. No. Just go do something to get it ball moving.
Right.
And we do that even today. I think, we're heavily involved in technology and engineering. And I think we always balance the how fast can we go while making sure that they still feel comfortable with what we're doing. Because engineers tend to like to over-engineer things, so no offense. But how do we go as fast as possible? And one of the things that Andrew's preached with us that I think is a really strong asset of what we're doing is we say yes to a lot of things and then we go fast to figure it out, right? So we've got some things on the table today. It's like it's taken other people 10 years that we've done in 4 days. Literally.
Yeah.
So
That's
I think that's a
incredible.
really one. But I would just encourage those people, get to the starting line, put something down and just go do.
Yeah.
The thing that I always tell people, do it without any investment. Don't go out and spend $25,000 on something, to try to drive something. It starts with hard work.
Sure.
I think
Sweat
that's
equity.
a great point. Like the mindset is if this aligns with your values, it's something you're passionate with, start with yes and work backwards on what needs to be true in order for that to be successful. So I think that's something that's really helped our company. And I see too many entrepreneurs get stuck in this what if cycle of like, what if it doesn't work out? What if it's harder than I expected? It's always going to be harder than you expect. Like that's a guaranteed. But the question I like to ask is, what if it turns out even better than you could have ever imagined?
And then all those opportunities that you turn down are still there if you fall on your face. They are. And then you even have the experience of going through something, and people will probably respect that even more and give you those interviews. And you might have met somebody while you were trying to build a business to get an even better position.
Yeah.
Like there's really no negative to it as long as it's your passion.
Yeah, and I also say, I we preach transparency with our people too. It's like, hey, Mr. Customer, right? This looks like a really good thing that we can do, but here's what we want you to know. It's a partnership, right? Probably like you did with Anytime Fitness. It's like if we nail this, right? This is what's going to happen. Here's the steps. Here's what we're going to work together. You're going to have some skin in the game for it too, and we're going to take this forward together, right? It's letting people know that they know you're a startup, but that doesn't mean you're a startup that's just trying something. Like you have the passion, the spirit, right? It's just you have to position it well.
100%, and it did. So how did since you had no cleaning and you had no drone, how did you come up with actually doing that? Like where'd that come from?
It happened by serendipity. Saw people hanging off the side of a building on a swing stage. It's a windy day. This platform starts blowing into the side of the building. Workers are up there, literally white knuckling the rails, hanging on for dear life. And again, back to the starting conversation, it seemed like such an obvious thought. How could we leverage technology to make this safer, to make it more efficient? And I think I got really excited about solving that problem and inspired by the opportunity. What a lot of people don't recognize is commercial real estate is this massive asset class worth over $30 trillion globally, and you need to clean it and maintain it to retain value. So we're like, okay, this is a great starting point. But what we realized once we started building the technology is the cleaning drone's really just chapter one of a much larger story. We recognized we weren't building a cleaning drone. What we were building is this industrial modular robotic platform that we could put different top hats on to do different tasks. I want to emphasize we're very focused on cleaning because you need to be focused to start. But we've already done successful tests with our technology on painting, sealants, firefighting, de-icing, agriculture, delivery. What am I leaving out?
Yeah, those are the ones that we've worked on. We've got about 1,000 other things people ask us for that are interesting, let's call them. But you know,
what's the most interesting thing that
was
you can
about to ask
talk
that.
about?
Yeah.
That you've been asked.
That you're
for?
not under an NDA.
Yeah,
Business Legends is not liable for your.
So early on we got a lot of things that were what I would call sort of interesting. So we had a gentleman who is a farmer who has an issue with feral pig and deer eating all his crops. And he had a genuine idea of putting a laser system around his crop, and then anytime something crossed that, the drone would go to wherever that location was and spray bear mace to get rid of the issue.
Wow.
You know, very interesting, and he had it mapped out, he had it laid out, and I asked him, so are you concerned about things like your workers, your children, other people crossing the line and ending up, so we get a fair amount of that. We do get some really interesting ones though, like what I would call logistical things, right? So you run power lines and you have these massive grids of power lines, and they have like vegetation build up on the power lines. And what they used to do is they would literally drive for a year straight and just drive the route and check and see. And so there's some really interesting technology where you can run it with a drone, and then you can identify it, and then you send person to a spot location. I think those are real relevant. We have the infrastructure piece is really interesting, right? So, how do you go to the middle of a dam, halfway down the dam and halfway across, and get rid of vegetation that could be building a crack in the dam?
That's
right?
These are very interesting issues,
right? So, and then we go and say, what's sort of the multiplier there? Well, there's probably a dam in every state at least, and then, how do we look at it from that perspective? So we're always looking at kind of how do you scale it?
Sure.
Yeah. So back when I was doing it, they just came out with the technology of letting drones sit in boxes near these areas, and then like when they wanted them to work, they'd cut them on, they'd go map it and find the problem and take care of it. Is that still the going fix, or is it different now?
For a lot of the data applications, drone in a box is the term everybody's gravitating towards. So if I've
Drone in a box.
If I've got a nice property and I want a security drone, they'll kind of sit in that box, they'll do regular patrols and be more or less without need of human intervention. But we're focused on a much different part of the drone market, not just drones that collect data, but drones that actually physically affect the world by doing some type of productive task. So yes, we love data and all things you can derive from it, but we also love to do the work associated with the data you collect. Because when you look at the way drones have been used, it's like, let me go map a roof to see where I've got heat loss or where I need to put new shingles down.
Yeah.
Well, we would love to marry that with then a drone that could actually go and do that. So we don't need to send somebody up on a ladder and then a roof, because almost 500,000 people go to the ER every year from these ladder-related falls. So that's really the side of the equation that gets us very excited.
Yeah.
We need to market them hard so we can lower the ER wait time.
Oh God, no kidding. That's something. Yeah.
Please buy Lucid.
Yeah, no kidding. The some of the I had to visit somebody in the hospital in December, and the ER in Charlotte Uptown. Now it was the cold weekend, and the ER was, it was like an apocalyptic hell zone. There was just people bleeding and coughing everywhere, and it was and discarded needles in the middle of the hall and stuff. It was gross.
So do you find yourself doing do you find yourself as not the replacement, but like a cleaning service, or do you find yourself selling to cleaning companies?
The latter. We really focus on being the technology provider. In the next 30 seconds, you'll learn how to go and sell a Lucid drone.
Okay.
Our whole pitch is we go to these existing service providers, and with our drone, you can now do more jobs in less time with less liability. If you want to put business terms on that, more revenue, better profits per job, and you're lowering your business risk.
Man, the world is ever changing. I suppose it's incredible to see what the technological advancements that come out. This is totally off topic, but have you guys seen the Chat GPT feature online?
It's a good friend.
It is like freaking me out. Like just the
So I think it made Google mad. Google was supposed to be launching they're actually talking about
version.
Lambda
like
today.
next week or something. They're launching it today.
Yeah, it's called Bard. It's out.
That's right.
Beta test today.
Yeah.
That'll change search.
Yeah. Tremendously.
So we've been using a form of that for more than a year.
Okay.
Nice.
Gotcha.
So there's a business platform called Jasper AI.
Yeah, we use it as
Also
well.
use it.
Yeah.
So Jasper has
Yeah.
that same capability, and so
Yeah.
that's, I think it's going to be really interesting. My take on ChatGPT is it's going to broaden the scope of what businesses are capable of doing, which will
Right.
then create more businesses,
Yeah.
which will create more opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the Today Show episode with a Columbia University professor, basically saying how, kids need to learn how to research and that sort of thing. And so I've got a college age student. I said, so tell me how you research. It wasn't going to the library and opening up a book.
No,
Yeah.
it was Googling stuff.
Googling stuff. So
yeah.
the really interesting thing from an academic perspective, I think that has its own pros and cons. But from a business perspective, like you guys, we can stay lean and mean at 15 people,
Right.
right? And we can get a lot more done
Sure.
with platforms like this. And back to the entrepreneurial conversations, if you're an entrepreneur, this would be a game changer for you. If you're a
For
solopreneur,
For sure.
you can get so much more done.
Yeah. You don't have to write any copy. I mean, it's
You
it's
can literally
incredible.
right now with ChatGPT. It's a little more advanced than Jasper, but you can literally go into ChatGPT and you could say, what kind of marketing company should I start if I want to focus on car dealerships, and what services should I provide that they buy the most often?
Yeah.
And it would break that entire thesis down for you and
Yeah.
give it to you like
It's
this. Like here's
kinda
your
freaky,
business
man.
plan. Here's
Kinda
your business
freaky.
plan.
Yeah, so we actually, I was at the University of Alabama last week talking to business students, and there's very few times that I can wow college kids with technology at my age. Like a lot I don't know.
Ripe young age of 35.
Yes, exactly. And I said, all right, so I went through some of this, and we had lots of great conversation about AI. And so at the end, I said, all right, we're going to start business, and we're going to do everything about the business right now. And they were like, I said,
Wow.
give me a business idea. We came with a business idea. I said, give me a business name. I said, actually, better yet, let's create the business. Let's figure out kind of the target market. Let's get a couple things. And we literally went through and we created a business name, a business description. We created 5 social media posts, 4 blog posts, a sequence of emails.
Wow.
We did everything that you could do sort of externally
Yeah, to start.
in
yeah.
Jasper in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Unbelievable.
That took me
Unbelievable.
weeks at
Yeah.
coffee shops.
Oh, yeah, or more.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so because again, for the entrepreneurs, how do you get to the start line?
Right.
So I was like, you don't need
20
to-
minutes.
Yeah,
You need
and
20 minutes.
And I was
Yeah.
like, you think about it. It was whatever it is. It's less than $100 a month. Like it's like
Yeah.
And so that was what I was wanting the takeaway to be is, if you have these great ideas, go. Right? Go. Minimal cost, lots of sweat equity, lots of effort. But now there's tools.
Right.
Like one of our coworkers has always wanted to write a movie script. And he wrote a movie script using that platform.
No way.
Yeah. And he
That's
put in
crazy.
like, he wanted to do a horror film, which was interesting. So he put that in there. And I think what the great thing about that is most young professionals struggle on how to start. They got an idea and then they don't know what to do. So you get a little bit of experience with that. It's like, I have this business idea, but I'm not sure where to start. And it's like, try something and then just keep iterating on it, right? Because what I feel with a lot of the people I mentor is they want to throw a ton of money at something.
Right.
And I'm like,
Money's
just
not the answer.
wrong approach.
Yeah.
And you guys know from doing what you do, like you could throw $1 gazillion at something and it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be successful.
Right.
You got to have a good plan, good model, good
Yeah.
work
A lot of
ethic.
people
Good
chase
marketing.
a lot of people chase the shiny object, right? It's
Yeah.
like, what's the latest thing on Facebook group that's, for, bing.
Right.
Scott, there was a concept in there I'd love to unpack, which is just iteration and
Yeah,
the actual
absolutely.
speed of iteration. Because when you look across successful startups and just businesses in general, that speed of execution matters so much. I think school has trained us in a very terrible way to focus on always wanting to be right.
Yeah.
So we over-optimize. Let's spend a lot of time looking at this from 30 different angles to make sure it's right before we act. But in that time, if you could have tested 4 or 5 other things, your rate of learning could be so much greater. And it's like the fundamental law of all things in the world. If your rate of learning and evolution can be faster than the rate of change around you, that's how you're going to survive and build a great business. But once you slow down to the point where you're like, man, it takes us 4 weeks just to make a simple decision because we've
or
got to
catch
hold
up.
30 different meetings and get these stakeholders and get all this buy-in. And I call it the corporate lag effect. That iteration speed matters so much. And while you're early and smaller, you need to lean into that as much as possible, because inevitably with growth, it slows down, but the longer you can hold it off, the better.
It's actually a crazy thought. So, like, instead of a teammate going, hey, Christian, what do you think the best idea to market to this exact audience is for this company? I mean, I have my experiences, but I'm not every single search and blog in the world from professionals all around the world. What if they just typed into ChatGPT or this new AI and just said, how do I do this? And it gave them a plan. Would that plan be more efficient than mine?
Well, I think
That's interesting.
I think sometimes when
Scary thought.
when you're immersed in something as much as we are in our businesses, right? You can't see the forest through the trees, or you get, well, I'm under pressure to get something done, accomplished. So you kind of lose sight of the big picture when you're in that day to day, right?
Absolutely.
So one of the things that Andrew's very, very good at is we'll sit down as a group and we'll talk about very specific things, and then he will socialize it with his network of investors, advisors, right? Big decisions, right? And so we're always wanting to get some third-party validation,
Sure.
right? And it's the same concept. If you got this idea, I think we run into that trap of either we've done it this way and it's always worked, so we keep doing it,
Right.
Or, well, it's just a race to get it out there.
Yeah.
And I would rather have less of whatever content, product, less of things and have them be better than more and have it be just okay.
Yeah.
And so we were always balancing that speed, right, versus the quality.
Yeah, quality of excellence type of thing.
Yep.
It's so amazing, and I'll close out with this, but industry to industry, there's really not that much in common between our industries, and yet we go through the same things. We have what I was just thinking about, our superstar employee, Austin, and I don't mind saying that. He has a background in health and fitness, and so he's a personal trainer just like we were for a long time. Not that you can tell now that we're old and fat, but Austin, we've had more than a few gym clients. It's actually how we started the company pretty much. And whenever we've gotten a gym contract or something, he kind of leans back into his experience and he says, well, I've had this experience with that, and we've had a lot of conversations about, Austin, your experience is valuable, but it's not necessarily right, because the world's changing. I mean, you've been marketing now for 5 years, so in 5 years' time, there's a lot of differences in things.
Remember, I said this: keep your eye on SEO if y'all are trying to attack SEO.
Yeah,
AI is about to spin it up
it's
on its
going
head.
to change it drastically.
Because think about the search now. If they give you an entire article answer, where's the SEO at?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
From all over the world, not just one place.
Yep. And you'll see, I think what you'll see is some evolution of SEO companies being able to leverage a chat type platform
For sure.
to drive it. Back to your statement about Austin, I totally agree with you. I think what I would think about, because we do it with our group, is, okay, Austin, you got the foundational, right? But foundational gets us 75% of the way.
Right.
What's that 25% that's going to be so different, so new, and it's going to drive much more engagement for the customer because it is that new different thing, right?
Sure.
Like we do that, like, okay, we have a baseline of kind of, what we rely on, but then
Right.
it's like, okay, hold on. So that's why I think it's important to be able to leverage a lot of different conversation with a lot of different people. And I've learned that some of the best ideas come from a variety of people. And a lot of times it's either the end user, doesn't necessarily mean external end user, but
Right.
whoever's kind of doing it the most, those are the people that I think we listen to the most. Like
Yeah.
a delivery driver,
Yeah.
like they know what's really going on.
Right.
So if you're thinking about logistical things, ask that person.
Yeah.
Don't ask the guy looking at the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
He doesn't
Ask
know.
the guy in the field.
Yeah.
Type of
So I have
thing.
a crazy question for you. So my 10-year goal for you would have been to be at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and you got there in 2? So let's go beyond that. But 10 years from now, where do you see Lucid in your wildest dreams? Not in your just the screw loose conversation.
So I just want to make sure we're on the same page. The screw loose conversation is what's going to happen.
I love it.
The moon. We're going to the moon.
And he went to the Mercedes in 2 years.
Yeah, it's
Think
incredible.
about that.
Our vision at Lucid is we want to build the ultimate modular robotic platform that does these labor-intensive tasks, empower people to live better lives. So the cleaning drone is just chapter 1 of that. As I mentioned, we've already figured out a lot of other things that we plan on expanding into. But 10 years from now, we want Lucid to be synonymous with these productive robots that are helping us live better lives. When we look at the world today, I think one of the worst things that's happening is we have a lot of bright minds not solving meaningful problems. do we really need another SaaS product that makes spreadsheet computing 5% faster?
Right.
Do we need another competitor of Twitter? We could argue about that.
Yeah.
But
Probably.
think about these issues that afflict humanity that haven't changed much. If anything, they've gotten worse. We've got hunger, homelessness, happiness. The list goes on. And when you look at robotics at scale, imagine if you could deploy robots to automate apple farming to such an extent that now taking an apple would cost a fraction of a cent. How could that contribute to hunger? If we could automate home building to such an extent that we could make a single family entry home now cost $20,000, how many more people could actually own a home and have a roof over their heads? And I think that's the ultimate vision for robotics, is allowing people to get back to what we do best, which is being creative, focusing on happiness, and not just doing these physically monotonous tasks, because that's not what makes us distinctly human. And a big part of our strategy is we're doing it all domestically. Today, over 90% of drones and robots, they come from overseas. And there's a lot of data privacy concerns. There are a lot of trust issues.
Yeah, like Chinese spy balloon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we do all our engineering, our manufacturing, our support. It's all done locally here. And we're very happy to say that, because it leads to a much better customer experience. We know if you have an issue, we can get it in and out the door a lot faster than if you need to send it all the way to Asia to get it repaired.
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great answer.
And we need to work on our 10-year vision.
I was expecting
answer.
like the moon.
Yeah. We're just gonna have some drones put on rockets and just fly them up. To the
Yeah,
moon or
I'll
something.
simplify it for
Yeah.
me. Beach, fishing pole, drink. That's my 10-year plan.
Man after my own heart. Okay, so our time is concluded now, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. We always close out a Business Legends. This is where I stall and try to think of a funny question, by the way, if you've listened to previous episodes. But I think I got it. So my question is as such: can you build, and will you build, a automatic drone bartender? Because you were talking about the fishing pole and the drink on the beach.
So, I'm now a little bit concerned you've bugged our office in preparation for this.
So Scott talks about this on a somewhat weekly basis.
The way we talk about our first product is it's not actually a cleaning drone, it's a spraying drone. So
Okay.
you could put, water, a cleaning solution.
Vodka.
Exactly.
Vodka,
So
whiskey.
at some point this year, you will see a Lucid drone tethered to a beer keg.
In my house.
Spraying beer at 100 feet. Because
In a lot of
everybody
springs.
knows that beer can taste better at 100 feet than it does on the ground.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the bartending drone is not too far away.
Wow. Well.
And to answer a side question here, there's actually robots already bartending.
Well, I know there's robots bartending, but to do it like on a drone, like in the 100 feet in the air, that's pretty.
You'd have to like try to
Very
catch the
excited.
beer. That'd be
Yeah.
Make
Let's.
this a field day.
Well, we know what we're talking about offline, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks
Thank
for having
you.
us.